Apologies, Dave. That is what I've just turned on, everyone.
That's okay. That's okay. They've missed out on finding out where people are calling from and the weather. That I
That's
think
all
they
right.
wouldn't
We
without
we
that.
haven't ruined it,
But
guys.
the really important, contentious question they won't miss out on. I want to know, coriander, yay or nay? Are you guys coriander people? It's the great divide. Yays. Have we got a nah? Nah? Have we got any yeah nahs? That's a very Aussie thing to do, isn't it? Yeah nah. Some people hate it. All right. So, last one. Can you just put into the chat, are you working on a team? Do you have a team? So I'm just sort of wondering, are you guys the entrepreneurs with a team? Are you a solopreneur? Do you have like a VA support? What sort of level of teams do we have here? All right, we've got some small teams and other people logging in. Okay. So people with teams, probably because we mentioned team in the title, that probably attracts some people. These things are really the strategies and things we're going to talk about are going to be good for individuals as well, but certainly I was thinking for teams. So, Jarryd, I can share, right?
You sure can.
Have you got my opening slide without any speaker notes?
Yes. Good to go.
Cool. All right, so we called it the confidence equation. And I'm talking about what I call authentic confidence. And confidence isn't accidental, it's built with your team. Um, and there's something I saw in allied health and a lot of the allied health businesses I support. And I actually see it across teams more broadly across all industries. We're seeing capable, committed people who are struggling for some reason or other. And I know we often jump to generational things, but I want to say that it is not because they don't care, and it's generally not because they're not capable. But there's something that isn't working for them and for the team. And so today I want to share a simple framework that I've developed that came out of my years of clinical work, out of the supervision I've done in my practice, running teams and supporting leaders to lead their engaged teams as well. This framework, it's helped us understand what was missing and how to build that confidence in a way that actually lasts and creates teams who take real ownership. And I want to say not just for the team, but for you. I first discovered this when I was really on my own. I had my wife who was my teammate and she'd gone back to uni, but day in, day out, I was in the clinic. And so let's just jump to that really quickly to tell you, give you some context of who I am. Um, Dave Jereb. I'm an occupational therapist by background. For the past 18 years, I've been building Moveabout, which is a multi-clinic allied health business across New South Wales. This is my beautiful wife, Kathy, on the swing there with me. She's also an OT. We've got 3 clinics in Sydney, Central Coast, and Newcastle, team of over 40 now. Um, and over that 18 years, I've become really interested in something. How do we build teams that perform at a high level without burning out? And how do we support the people who support the clients? We work with kids in our practice. We say we support the people who support the kids. But across all of our teams that we work with, how do we support the people who support the clients so that they take ownership and they treat the business as if it were their own? Just up here, you've got my teams here. And also, I did write a book. If you're got any kids with some tricky behaviors, I wrote a book called Challenging the Story, a surprisingly simple approach to supporting children with challenging behaviors. And that's sitting down there. So I turned up for work on a cold Melbourne morning. The sun was warm and you could feel the sun on my skin, but the breeze was cold. It's like a wind tunnel. It's like everywhere was a wind tunnel when I was there, it felt. And I went to turn the key and it didn't work. The locks had been changed. This was my clinic. We, Kath and I were in partnership with some others. And earlier that year, Kath and I had moved back from the US and we'd partnered with a couple of people because it seemed like we were in alignment to start this clinic. On paper, everything seemed aligned. We had the same clients we wanted to work with, the same model of practice, the same goals. But underneath, our values were really, really different. There were 2 examples that come to mind that were identical, like literally identical. I had taken a new intake call And I was on the phone with a mum who had an autistic son. And I had nowhere to be. I only had, like 7 or 8 clients at that time. So I had all the time in the world for her. And I spent time and I gave her some strategies and I talked about what she could do and the different ways. And I gave some education and I supported her in a way that felt true to my values. And twice I was pulled up for it. And he said, we need to get them in and talk to them on their dollar and we need to reverse engineer this and that. Um, and something just didn't sit right with the way that I wanted to run my practice. As a side note, here's what I'm going to say. Both of those mums ended up being clients. So if you talk about lifetime value of a client, it was probably close to $10,000 for a 15, 20-minute call, right? But the other thing that both those clients did was took ages to become clients, 6 to 8 weeks, and they actually referred 3 other people who became clients before they even got in the door, before they even saw me practice from a 20-minute conversation. And that's when we knew there was something not in sync with our values and their values, and we wanted to do things the way that we thought was the right way to do things. So we decided we were going to leave. We were going to separate. We offered to stay for 6 months to help train their team. They said, "Oh, yeah, let us think about it." And then they got the locks changed on my business. I couldn't unlock the door. I didn't even get to say goodbye to my clients. And we had to start again. We had to move back to Sydney and start again. So we learned a lot about ourselves in that. I think what got us through it wasn't really just resilience, but it was support of each other, but supports around us. It was relationships. I think the experience really helped us get clarity on our vision and our values. And we really reflected on what made us strong as clinicians. And we also were sort of really able to think, here's what we need to get support in, because we're only 5 or 6 years into practice. And that's when something started to shift for me with my thinking, right? And it was the beginning of a framework we're going to talk about today, the 3S framework for supported self-development. It includes 3 aspects, which are self, supports, and structures. We're going to look at those lots and lots. And these allow you and your team to build authentic confidence so that you don't need to fake it till you make it, right? You can actually be confident that you're doing a great job. So many businesses, they don't have a talent problem. It's a problem around the conditions, right? And most of those condition problems, they sit inside systems that, might look good on paper, but don't always work out. We take capable people, we put them in environments where expectations are high, but clarity is low. We've got great systems inside the founder's head. Um, Sometimes support is inconsistent and learning is more left to chance. And then we're surprised when performance isn't good or when performance drops. So this isn't about finding better people, it's about creating the right conditions for the people we already have. So I'm going to guess, because you guys are part of this Go High level community, most of you guys have some systems, some of you have good systems or a lot of systems. Maybe you maybe have systems in your head, but not on paper or actually in a format that people can use. But even when we have them, they still sometimes break under pressure. And I really want to think about why that is. It's not always because you need more systems. Um, and things like AI are starting to step up and help us out with these. And AI can provide answers. It can generate plans, it can generate summaries and ideas, but it can't create ownership over a project in the business. It can't create courage. It can't build trust or initiative. And that's the shift we're looking for in this. Knowledge is no longer the bottleneck, right? There's so much information that you can get in a second. Confidence is really the bottleneck. And confidence doesn't come from having more information. It comes from being able to act in the face of uncertainty. So the challenge for leaders has changed. It's no longer just about knowledge or skill. It's about performance, retention, initiative, energy, culture. It's about the people-y stuff because the non-people-y stuff we can start to automate and get going really quickly. All of these things are deeply human and they're shaped by how people think, how they feel, and the conditions they're working in. So it means we can't solve this just with more information. When we try to solve this, we often look in the wrong places as well, or we're only looking in one place. As people do a lot of justs. Like I love it with burnout. People are like, oh, you just need to go for a run. Oh, you just need some mindfulness coloring in. You just need to switch jobs is one that a lot of young people get, and they do. They bounce from job to job, and they have the same circumstance and the same problem. Um, I don't know who said it, but I remember someone saying, you know what's all my past failed relationships had in common? Me. And so people jump, but they don't figure out what was the reason that their workplace wasn't working for them. So if we can help them work that out, we can fix those things. So we often focus on the person. So we're thinking about mindset and habits and resilience, or we focus on the workplace and we're like, we need more systems and it's about culture and it's about leadership. Both of these matter, but neither is enough on its own because performance, confidence, burnout, they don't come from one place. They come from the interaction of multiple factors. And that's where most of the solutions fall short. So this is the framework, the 3S framework for supported self-development. We're talking about with confidence here. Authentic confidence is built when these three domains align. Self supports structures. Not one of them, all of them. And if you only focus on self, then you end up putting all your pressure on the individual. If you end up focusing on supports, then sometimes people can become dependent. I know in our clinic, I mentioned that we support the people who support the kids. And there was a while there where actually, because there was a shortage of therapists, we were overdoing it. We were trying to take care of people. And what happened was you can never fill that up enough. And we weren't empowering people. We were trying to take care of them. And then when a challenge happened, when we weren't there, they fell apart. I had a team leader at the stage and she kept saying things like, oh, you got to fill your cup. You got to fill your cup. And all the team heard was, your cup is empty. Your cup is empty. And it's like, that's not quite what we're going for. So if you only have structures, people become, you get these rigid systems without ownership for things. So when these three things are working together, that's when confidence becomes sustainable. And done well, it allows confidence from actually the very beginning of their career or their role in your business, right? So often that's a time where they lack a lot of confidence and you probably want them to lack a little bit because there's so much they don't know. But what you want is them to feel safe that they can do a great job because they've got the systems and the supports to help them do a great job. So this isn't just a better system, it's what determines whether your current systems actually work. Okay, so without this alignment, things don't just plateau, they become fragile, right? So you can still get performance, but it's inconsistent. But it depends on the person, it depends on the day, depends on the pressure. But over time, that fragility shows up in burnout, in turnover of staff, in frustration, and teams that just don't click in a way that moves the business forward. We hear about, was it the Great Resignation or quiet quitting, where people aren't doing much when they're at work. So let's look at the first domain, and that's self. And to me, this is the foundation, and this is something we should be thinking about for ourselves as entrepreneurs and as solopreneurs and as small teams and as bigger teams, but also thinking about how we can support this in our team and help our teams discover these things as well. It's how someone relates to their work and to themselves within that workplace and the work that they do. So we're talking about vision and values, self-awareness and self-care. If this is off, you get that drift. You get the quiet quitting. You get people looking for meaning, but they haven't actually worked out what their meaning is. People lose direction, they lose energy, or they push in ways that aren't sustainable. The second domain is supports, and this is where a lot of organizations, they either get it really right or they get it really wrong, because support isn't just being nice. It's complex. You've got professional supports where you're ensuring that your people have someone to turn to. Social connection, I think, is really important, and you can get it inside or outside of work, but we really only have control of what happens at work. Physical and sensory environments can really wear people down. So we're going to break all these down separately in a second. So you don't have to get it all from this, but these are important. When this is strong, people grow faster, they take more risks, and they stay longer when they feel supported. When it's weak, even great people start to struggle. And the third one is structures. So this is how the work actually gets done and how we speed up that learning curve. So it includes structured reasoning, all your systems and your SOPs, skilled observation, how you get in that scientific eye, and strategic practice, how you can learn in a way that is faster and quicker and more deliberate. This is what turns effort into progress and allows teams to work and grow without micromanagement. Without this, people might work hard, but they don't always get better. I love this quote from Viktor Frankl. He who has a why can bear almost any how. And there's something that sits underneath this, which is that meaning. So when people have a clear why, they can handle pressure, they can handle uncertainty, they can handle challenge. But when it's missing, even small things feel heavy. And that's where the energy starts to drop off. So adding meaning to your work, finding meaning to your work, helping your team find what's their meaning. And people go, well, there's not really, my job's not meaningful like yours in therapy. And it's like, our grandparents found meaning in working in factory jobs. They were contributing to their family. There's a why that you're doing what you're doing. And it might be heavily related to what you do. It might be beyond what you do. But finding that why and finding alignment with what you're doing in everyday life can really drive a lot of energy for what you do. One way we add meaning to what we do is through how we make impacts. And so every session we do with a family, we give a day's water to someone. Every assessment, it's like a week's education somewhere. And so I want to give a little bit of meaning here, a little bit of impact. So let me see if I can drop this link in the chat. You don't have to give your details, but can I find the chat is the thing. Here we go. You don't have to give the details, but just click the link. Or if you're watching this, you'll scan the QR code and just choose an impact that's meaningful to you. And I'll make that impact on your behalf through B1G1. Again, you don't have to give your details. You just have to click the link or scan the code and then choose the impact that you find meaningful. Something that we can do easily, we can do it without thinking. It really was a way for me to go. We sort of wanted to give back and donate, but then you go, oh, these big companies, there's so much red tape and little ones might disappear or be dodgy. I love B1G1 because we pay a yearly membership and then 100% of the impacts we give are exactly what we give. And that goes to the cause that we identify. I have no affiliation other than we do it through those guys. And I do love those guys. Check them out. It's Masami Sato and Paul Dunn, leaders. I'm sure Paul Dunn's done something with Go High Level in the circles he walks in. All right, I'm going to move on. So self. Let's delve a little bit deeper. We're talking vision and values, self-awareness, and self-care. So the first part of self is vision and values. And I think this is possibly the most important aspect of authentic confidence, and also to developing a sense of intrapreneurship, that sense of ownership within the business, even when you're not the owner. I also think it's really important for reducing burnout and finding alignment between your personal vision and the company's vision, between your own values and the values of the company. I really do think there is immense value in really thinking about those, articulating them, and getting clear on those beyond having a bunch of words that sit on your website, right? This is more than having these on the website. This is living and breathing these. So if you go onto MoveAbout's Instagram, you can see very clearly in all our content that our values are that we're in it to make a difference. We're always learning. We're connection driven and we're playful. And they're values that are meaningful to our team They're core to what we do. Our overarching principle is that we support the people who support the kids, and that's our team, our families, and our community. This creates a lot of alignment and it's in sync with all my team members. Every interview I've ever done, I said, why did you get into this? And they're like, because I want to make a difference, because I want to do this with that. So we're able to find that synchrony. And so then they can feel aligned in their work. Um, when they're aligned, motivation rises naturally. You don't have to push. It just, you want to strive towards this just cause, is what Simon Sinek would call it. When you're not aligned, you might get compliance for a while, but you don't get that ownership. I think this is just as important to us and probably more important to us as entrepreneurs and founders as for our team as well. The second aspect is self-awareness. So self-awareness is an amazing multiplier. It's pretty amazing when people can actually articulate their strengths, their challenges, their blind spots, their triggers, their patterns. It's what helps you trust that you know what you're doing so that you can work autonomously, but also know when you need to seek support so you don't overreach, right? In our clinic, we say you don't fake it till you make it with support, but people trust what they can do. Without it, people keep repeating the same mistakes, even when they're trying hard to improve. With it, learning accelerates really quickly. As an example, so I had some team members that we do a lot of training for people to do assessments in our clinic. And because they write a report and that's our brand going out into the world, and we want to make sure that's really good. And I had a team leader who was burning out a little bit because she had 3 people she was supporting at the one time. I was like, well, when will they be independent? And she's like, oh, I spoke to them all and they think probably by the end of the quarter, they'll be independent. And we'd been doing this for sort of 3 or 4, maybe 4 months. And so I was like, well, if they're independent in everything at the end of the quarter, they must be independent in something now. And so we created a competency checklist that was just like a traffic light. Here are the things you need to do to run an assessment. Is it red? I don't feel competent. Yellow, I do feel competent. Green, I feel like I excel at this. And they filled it out and they realized actually there were no reds. There were literally 0 reds. But when you asked them to do a whole assessment, they were like, oh, I can't do that yet. But when you broke it down into the little aspects and they start to become aware, they were like, actually, I'm competent about everything. I'm a little nervous about these things. And so instead of the team leader being part of all those assessments, what we did was we put in a safety net. She was going to do admin at the time that they did the parent meeting. And so if she was needed, they could come and get her. So they were able to sort of put the training wheels on, but they did it by themselves and they never needed her. But they didn't have the self-confidence to say, yes, I can do all of assessment until we broke it down. And they were like, yeah, I'm now aware that I can do these things. Look, self-care, there's stacks of stuff of self-care out there. If anyone talks about burnout, it's almost like self-care is the only thing we go to. But it is important. Sometimes I dismiss it because it's the only thing anyone else ever talks about. Well, I don't want to dismiss it. It's not a luxury. It's a really important part of the system. If we expect people to think clearly, to show up consistently, and to do meaningful work, they need energy, right? They need energy to do the work. And you need energy to do the work. Entrepreneurs are like mums, right? They eat last and they never take a break and all of these things. And that, especially Tara, I don't know if you are a mum, Tara, but entrepreneurs who are mums, they're the worst. And the best is what I mean by that. And so this doesn't just come from motivation, it comes from sleep, it comes from recovery, it comes from space to reset. When self-care is missing, everything else gets harder. So thinking gets harder, regulation gets harder, so we can be moody, connection gets harder. This isn't optional. It's one of the core elements that protects against burnout and sets the foundation for authentic confidence. So there are, I sometimes forget about this as well. I like to think I work in sprints, and there are times that then I do need to decrease the load, take more breaks. I can go for a while, but we need to make sure we don't burn ourselves out, because all of you guys as entrepreneurs are the most important people in your business, because without you, there is no your business. All right, so these sort of all build towards the concept of flow. Flow is what we get when These are all coming together. It's where performance comes from at a high level. It's when the challenge is right and purpose is meaningful. So it's not pressured, not pushing harder, not accountability, but getting that just right challenge, right? It happens when challenge and skill are in balance. If the challenge is too high, people feel overwhelmed. If it's too low, they disengage. But when it's just right, people lock in, they focus, they do their best work, right? This is when you feel like time passes and you're like, where did all the time go? Because I'm so engaged in what I do, right? And it's the key shift for leaders. We don't just ask for performance, we design it in a way that we can get these flow experiences. And that's through the work that we give, the support that we provide, and the structures that we build in there so that people can feel that things are at the just right challenge and they have the right level of autonomy to do what they need to do, that they're aligned with their values, and that they're engaged. All right, so a quick check-in. Out of 10, how well does your workplace, your business, currently support these aspects of self? You can think about yourself, you can think about your team. If you go, if you're willing to, pop it in the chat and let us know if you gave yourself a score out of 10. I would say that if you asked me a couple of years ago, well, that would have been during COVID. We actually did a lot, we overdid it in COVID in some ways, I felt like, but we probably needed to. But before COVID, I was much lower, below a 5. Now we're closer to an 8 in our practice. But have a think about it. If you don't want to put it in the chat, I want you to even write it on your paper in front of you. I want you to make an action to log it for yourself, even if you don't want to share it with us. And then just think about if we could get this self right, if we could get clear on our vision and values and our meaning, self-aware and really know what can we do, what do we need help with so that we can seek that out, which is the next step, and have some of those self-care practices. How would that feel to you? And you can share, but I want you to think through that a little bit. Okay. The second S is supports. So supports are what make performance sustainable. Not just training, not just supervision, but real support, right? And so in the 3S framework, supports include professional supports, environmental supports, and social connection. People to think with and people to problem solve with, people to help you see what you can't see. Because when people feel supported, then they start taking risks, the right risks, not the dodgy risks. They ask questions, they step up, they step forward, they take responsibility. And when they don't get that support, they play it safe or they freeze, you get quiet quitting, you get disengagement. Support isn't a bonus, it's a condition for consistency and it's a condition for growth. No one scales alone. This concept of a solopreneur is not really a thing because there are people around you that are there, that are helping you out, whether it's your family or your partner, whether you have a VA or a small team. Humans are not islands. We're not individual. No one scales alone. It's not just the individuals and teams or businesses. It's all coming together. Every setup requires support. You probably have an accountant. You probably have people that help with different aspects. I don't care how good your AI tools are. People need people at some level. And as leaders, this is the shift, right? We want to start asking, why aren't they performing or why aren't I efficient? And we need to start asking, what support do they need to take that next step? Or what support do I need to be able to work at my level? Sometimes we don't have support, but we should have support, right? Sometimes we're doing the $25 an hour work when we should be doing the $1,000 an hour work because we haven't got the support that we need. So growth without support doesn't stretch people, it breaks them. It's not a way to help your business. I'm sitting at my desk staring through a doorway at the treatment room, actually at this war zone that was my former treatment session, with water poured across the ground from the bubble tub cool down that did anything but cool anyone down. And I just was like, I don't know what happened there. I can't do this. I can't do this job on my own. I I can't do this. I was extremely confident in my first 5 years when I was working at Beth's practice over in Chicago. But when we moved to Australia and then I shifted to Sydney and Kath was at uni and I was alone here and I had one of those sessions where nothing went right, I was like, I can't do this. I want my Justice League superpower support team that I had in Chicago back. And I was frozen to the spot and I just didn't know what to do. And I'm just staring at this mess of a room, much messier than the one in this picture, because I just kept trying to put swings up and the kid would go here and I was following the child around. In our therapy, we say we should follow the child's lead. I wasn't following his lead, I was following him around at about the distance of a lead. And I just couldn't connect with this kid, and it was a nightmare. And I'm sitting there and the aircon kicks in and it sort of snaps me out of it a little bit. And I look at the clock and I'm like, oh, I've got another client coming, I gotta go. But my body didn't move. Like I had 2 minutes till my next client and I couldn't get moving. And I'm sort of looking around the room looking for an answer, like there was going to be a poster on the wall to tell me what to do to make my body move in this moment. But my eyes locked in on some post-it notes. This is the only color of post-it notes. I will let you know. I don't accept any of these fluoro post-its today, kids today. But I saw a post-it note and I grabbed a pen and I wrote call Beth. And it was like magic. My body freed, my legs could move, and I could get up. Call Beth was all I had to write, and the curse was lifted. I stuck it to the phone. I packed up the room. I set up for the next session. I had two more sessions that went fine. They weren't my best, but they were fine. And I raced back to my desk and I called Beth. And she's like, "Oh, Dave." So it was 7 o'clock for her in Chicago. And she's like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "Not good, Beth. Not good. I just had the worst session in the world. I'm the worst therapist in the world. I can't do this on my own." She's like, "Well, tell me what happened." And so we started talking through it and she started asking me questions. After a while, I realized she was using the DIR model, the developmental individual difference relationship model. She was using a framework to ask me questions, to guide me through what happened. And I could see where it broke down and what I missed out and what happened. Um, and so I thanked her, and before we left, I booked in some mentoring time, and now I had to pay for it because I wasn't working for her, but it was worth every cent because now I had the start of my super team back, and then I got other support as well, and I could take a breath, right? I was generally confident, but it didn't take much for that confidence to be shaken. Um, that one experience, that one phone call, it helped me realize no man is an island. No matter how confident I was back in Chicago, I still needed support here. I realized that what gave me confidence wasn't that I was anything special. It was that I had the right supports and the structures on hand and the self-awareness to know when to use them. I could then build a business that was in alignment with my vision and values while also ensuring it was a strong business. In fact, that alignment of vision and values in combination with the other aspects of the framework, it was the secret to success. It wasn't just a nice thing that the other guys that I worked with didn't want to do. It was the secret to building a team of intrapreneurs who care about my business and treat it like it's their own. Before anything changed in that session, I knew I could call Beth, and that changed everything, right? That's what shifted for me, not because she solved it for me, but because I wasn't alone in it. When our people know that supports exist, they think more clearly, they're able to stay in the moment and be present, and they keep going, they persist. When they don't, that's when we get hesitation, avoidance, paralysis. So I want you to think who in your team can turn, who can the people in your team turn to? Who are the different people they can turn to for support? And do they know how to do it? And the same thing for you. Who can you turn to for support when you get stuck? Who do you turn to for support when you need go high level support? Who do you turn to for all the different things in your business? So support starts with professional supports. These are the person-to-person support your team members need and that you need as well. And now AI is part of those supports as well as the person-to-person. The supports need to these are the supports that they need to do the job that you're asking them to do at a level that you need them to do, right? I needed people to provide as good a service as I did, or as people just asked for me. So within, you've got the experience and the knowledge that they have, which might be still as a junior, but if they've got support, they can provide a service like a senior. So instead of fake it till you make it, we say just make it with support in our clinic. And we actually have a rule in our clinic that you don't get to bullshit, right? You don't get to bullshit to a parent. If a parent asks you a question, don't make stuff up. You say to them, hey, great question. Let me chat to the team and get an answer for you. Let me think about it and get back to you and give you a considered response. That's a really important question. I really want to take the time. Let me chat to some of the team and I'll get back to you. And every time, parents really value that. And so do all of your clients as well, to a degree. You know your business more than me, but being able to have that support to ask those questions is important. Mentorship accelerates everything, not because mentors have all the answers. And actually, after a very short time, they're not giving the answers, but they're helping people reflect and come up with the answers. But it's because they've seen the patterns before and they can help the person see them, right? They help you to avoid dead ends, make sense of complexity, move faster with more confidence. What might take someone 2 years on their own can take 2 months with the right support, and actually can sometimes take 2 minutes with the right support. And that's the shift for leaders. You're not just managing performance, you're shortening the learning curve and creating entrepreneurs, people who can think like you across the business. The next aspect of supports is environment. Our sensory and physical environments can have a massive impact on our performance and well-being. Getting physical workspaces right to prevent injury and support focus and attention. I have to tell you, occupational therapists, people that I went to uni with, go into businesses and help people get seating and desk spaces right. And pediatric therapists have some of the worst desk spaces you ever see. But getting your work environment right to prevent injury, but also to support attention, to be able to have good posture is pretty important for the work that we do. Also, the sensory environment as well. So if we're overloaded by our senses, it's hard to work. External distractions can really deplete your cognitive resources and wear us down. So it's things like sensory environments with noise and sound and visual things. Social environments can sometimes help and sometimes hinder. We have a rule in our clinic where if you're wearing headphones, it means you're a no-go zone. We also have another rule where it's like if you're asking a question, use Google Chat even if the person's sitting there, because if you interrupt their flow with their work, that can really deplete it. Tech, news streams, emails, phone calls, tweets, blogs, chats. Man, if you can get rid of your notifications, you can really save yourself a lot of energy. So what strategies do you have to create support? What strategies do you have to create supports for how do you support physical and sensory environments in your workspace? Are you guys all working at home in terrible workspaces or in good workspaces? I want you to think about this for yourself. It's worth a few $100s to protect your back and to protect your body, but it also sets up attention and to do things, but also for your team as well. So have a think about that. The third aspect of support is social connection. People have different needs for connection, but we all need connection. So this need can absolutely be met outside the workplace or inside, but it needs to be met. And so leaders can't control what happens outside of work, but we can influence our culture. And culture isn't something that's written on a wall or written on your website. It's what people feel and how they act every day. It's how people feel safe to speak, how supported it feels so that they can try and give things a go, how valued people feel when things are hard. So you can have great values on paper. You can even have cultural statements and all these different things and still have a culture where people don't feel safe, people don't feel good, and that really depletes them and leads to disengagement. Culture isn't declared, it's experienced. And it's built in the small moments over and over again that build trust and connection. So does your team connect with each other? Do they connect with your vision and values of your business and feel part of it? But do they enjoy each other? Do they connect? You don't have to be best friends, but do they feel good when they're around each other? So again, just have a think about how well does that should be your workplace currently provide supports? Think about professional supports, social connection, environment. You have a lot of control over professional supports and environment. But opportunities for some level. You got to be careful too at social connection. What I discovered was I needed someone in my business to be the social coordinator because even if I was paying for dinner or paying for beers or whatever it is outside of work hours, it was a work event if I was the one who came up with it. So if you can find someone else to come up with it, that's a handy thing. What's one area that you could improve? Have a think about that. And then the third element is structures. So self is about the individual. Supports is about, they're about professional, social, physical, and sensory environments. Structures are about how we think, how we see, how we act. So there's three parts to this: structured reasoning, skilled observation, and strategic practice. Obviously, I can't go into all of these in depth, but I want you to feel why they matter. So structured reasoning tools, they can include things like systems and frameworks. They're your SOPs. They guide actions while you're learning, but they also help maintain consistency. You already have them in this business if you've been working for even a short amount of time, but for many, they may be stuck in your head, or they may not be updated, or they may not be clear to everyone who picks them up. The big difference is not whether you have them, but it's whether the team actually engages with them and can use them under pressure. Structures guide action during the learning phase, but they also help maintain consistency. So long as they're user-friendly and easy to use, and easy to make, and easy to update, right? So I don't mean heavy printed manuals that sit on a shelf, or they're electronic versions that sit in a computer. I don't mean highly edited videos. I used to hate policies and procedures, right? I hated them because they took so much work to create. No one wanted to read them. And then they were out of date a week after you created them. And no one wanted to update them because they took so long to do the first time. Now, I love systems. I love creating systems. And with AI, it's so easy to start to do these things as well. But our systems now are simple. We often use Loom videos to record a system, just recording what we're doing while we're doing it. And we have a done is better than perfect mentality with our systems. Done is quite literally better than perfect, right? And you think, how can that be? You want to get content that's good enough, easy to understand, and then move on, right? Perfect is what I expect for the file name so I can find it. But I don't do titles, don't do music, no over editing, no graphics that aren't actually helpful, nothing to make it look pretty. Because if you keep them simple and bare bones and rough, if they need updating, there's no resistance, right? If you can whip it up on Loom in 3 minutes and that's your system, and someone says, oh, you forgot this, I have the best response to that. It's like, oh, I forgot that. Thank you for pointing that out. Can you re-record it and add that in? And they're happy to because it's easy enough. Or can you add an extra little bit to put on the end of the one we've got? Right? And now that we've changed our approach, I've literally had team members confide almost in a whisper, I actually enjoy making systems. They couldn't believe it when we started doing it, but they actually love making systems because it makes everyone's life easier. People don't have to wonder. They can find what they need to do. I hate saying you should never have to say the same thing twice unless you really enjoy saying that thing. So if you're having to tell people how to do something over and over again, create a system they'll engage with. And make it simple so that if you have to update it, you don't feel like someone's breaking your work of art. People become faster when they know how to think, right? This is where these frameworks matter. Frameworks don't replace thinking, they support it. They give people a way to organize information, to make decisions, and to act intentionally. When someone knows how to think, they become confident so much quicker. Structured reasoning should be simple, right? It's having a consistent way to think through the complexity. Without it, you get people guessing, and guessing to them actually feels like incompetence. And people are not going to stay in a role where they feel incompetent for very long. Beyond the systems, we need to help our team build their scientific eye, or their clinical eye, we say in the therapy world. When people know what good looks like, what does done look like, how to approach a problem, what steps to take, their stress levels go down. Not because the work is easier, but because it's clearer. And clarity is actually something we can design and we can build in, right? It doesn't happen by accident. Through our support and our structures, they develop an eye for seeing problems and solutions. So in the therapy world, we talk about the clinical eye. We also talk about skilled observation. So getting that eye in to be able to see the important things here and adjust as needed. It's knowing what actually matters in front of you. And it's a skill that is developed, but with support. And also the structures that we provide can start to help people understand what to look for. Because if you're looking at the wrong thing or you don't understand what you're looking at, there's no framework that's going to help you be successful. And the last thing is strategic practice. It's often referred to as deliberate practice. It's more than just runs on the board or hours of experience. It's focused, deliberate practice and reflection. This speeds up the learning curve exponentially. And you get it with great systems and great supports to be able to guide you. When you can approach your work with a scientific eye or the focus of a martial artist, then you learn more quickly and you learn in every experience that you have. What did I expect to see? What did I expect to happen? Did it happen? What did I see? What was different? Why was it different? What can I learn here? So systems protect energy. Every time someone has to figure something out from scratch, it costs energy, it costs time, and we know that that costs money, right? Every unclear process, every missing template, every inconsistent expectation, it adds friction. Systems remove that friction. They make the right way the easy way, is a way to think about it. Strategic practice it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about having clear ways of doing things. So the effort goes into the thinking and creativity, not the figuring out process. Okay. So one more check-in. Out of 10, how well is your workplace using systems and structured learning? How well do you engage in structured reasoning? Do you have your SOPs or your frameworks, or do you avoid those things like the plague? Do you have strategies to start to develop skilled observation in your team so that they can see a situation and read a situation the way you do? And do you have practices that support that deliberate strategic practice? And I would just put out a challenge. What's one system that you could capture today? I discourage sitting down and making systems or sitting down and making policies and procedures. What I do is I go, when you're doing it, if it's something you don't want to be doing, or if it's something that someone else needs to do, just capture it while you're doing it. Just record the screen while you're doing it. Or just spew a blurb into the ChatGPT app or into Claude or whatever you're using straight after you've done it when it's fresh in your mind, and just chip away at them as you do them. Don't sit down and try and smash out SOPs. All right. I don't think you can not talk about AI these days, but really quickly, this is where AI fits in. It's not a replacement for people, but a support for systems. Absolutely. It will replace some people, unfortunately, but it is absolutely a support for systems. It's incredibly useful for drafting documentation, summarizing information, supporting planning, generating ideas. It reduces the load on the parts of the job that drain energy, and that frees up the brain for creativity and vision, so your team can focus on what matters most in your business. So it is going to replace some jobs, but there's a limit, right? AI can't support thinking. It can't replace leadership. It doesn't hold values. It doesn't build trust. It doesn't create safety, and it doesn't take responsibility. That's our role as leaders. So it's not going to replace you guys. Uh, and smart leaders, we can use it to be able to do our admin, repetitive tasks, low value tasks, documentation support, the non-human parts. We can also supercharge our thinking and our ideation with it, but not the moments that require that real judgment. It can support those, but we've got to make the judgment. It can't do the connection. It's not going to take responsibility. We need to do that. And ideally, we build teams that are teams of entrepreneurs that care about the business and they do those things as well. So most organizations, think about one or two. Some do all really well, some do one really well or none really well. Two out of three works until it doesn't. When all three are in place, performance really is supercharged. Depending on what was I going to say? When all three are in place, performance stops depending on the individuals and starts coming from the system itself, and then our individuals feed back into it as well. So the term entrepreneur, this was something came out in the 70s. I think it's Gifford Pinchot, maybe Pinchot, but it really describes people who think and act like owners inside a business, right? So people who can think, decide, act within the systems and create new systems. People who think like you. When people understand how to think, they stop asking, "What do I do?" and start asking, "How do I improve this?" So we call it an entrepreneur. I got it from Mike Michalowicz, who wrote Profit First and Clockwork, and I love it. We use it in our business all the time. It's a key to how we've run MoveAbout and how we scaled to 3 clinics and 40 people. I couldn't do that. I don't even need to go into any of the 3 clinics anymore because we have entrepreneurs that really care about our business and supporting the people who support the kids. They act like an owner. I'm the entrepreneur, and so are many of you guys. We take risks, sometimes get rewarded in profits. Entrepreneurs take ownership of the business not because of financial reward, but because it's rewarding to have agency and control, because they are trusted, they might be looked up to. It's nice to be needed, it's nice to problem solve, and they're aligned with the vision and the values of the business. It's not necessarily about personality. It's about what happens when people are trained to think, not just follow systems, and they're given some trust. They improve systems often in ways you wouldn't know to do. They're better at solving problems without having to wait or come to you. Improve systems, not just tasks, right? So there are a lot of things in my business now. I don't even know how they work. I have to ask someone else, but it's not really part of my job. So I'm quite happy not knowing. They think about the client, not just their role, not just their pay packet. They take initiative without judgment, and they protect the standards of your business, not just the outcomes for their KPIs. And you can't necessarily hire entrepreneurs. You get them by building better systems and building up your team through the support you provide and the structures you have. This is the work we do with organizations in when I'm training other teams, not adding more systems, not coming up with more and more and more, but making the systems you have actually work and clear for the people that support your clients, your team, and for yourself as well. Actually, that's something I need to get better at is creating my own systems for things that are only for me that I do once in a while. I'm just capturing that so it's there to come back to. Providing your team permission to be entrepreneurs, giving them the just right level of support and challenge as well, helping them find their sense of agency, and then they'll help run and grow your business. So I want to ask, you don't have to answer, but just reflect, are you training drones to be replaced by AI with zero loyalty because the work relationship is only transactional? These are people who'll jump ship in a second, right? And we see people jumping ship all the time. Or are you building a team of entrepreneurs by nurturing them and by considering self-supports and structures? All right, that's the confidence equation. Not fake it till you make it, but authentic confidence and entrepreneurship at all levels of your team. If your systems rely on your best people to hold them together and to hold them in their mind, that's a fragile system. If they work through the whole team and the whole team can do the aspects they need to, that's when you start to scale. Okay, that's it. I something that I've created with you guys in mind, but I've been wanting to do this for a while, is something I've called the intrapreneurial scorecard. It's a 3-minute quiz, and actually I can pop it in the chat, but obviously if you're watching the recording, you'll have to use the QR code. It's a 3-minute quiz. It has 27 questions that go through the supported self-development framework, self-supports and structures, and to think about how your workplace meets is performing across those three elements. And it gives dynamic results so that you do get some feedback based on how you respond as well. And you guys have a great community. The people I know within it are fantastic people. So please reach out if you have any questions following this. I love to connect on LinkedIn. In the last couple of years, I've fallen in love with LinkedIn. It's a social media with smart people who are generally nice in my experience, which is unlike all the others. You can email me directly, or if you're looking for speakers, hit up our professional development email there. But so I'm happy to have a discussion and answer any questions, Jarryd.
Brilliant,
Have we
mate.
gone over time? Are we too long, too short? Too
Look,
long.
we're right on time, but I think what we'll do is we'll drop in some questions, and I'm glad that you shared how people can get in touch with you as well, because I know that there'll be some people that'll be able to check this out that want to know what's going on there. What I've done is I've got some questions here. I'm going to spitfire them at you, and guys, if you've got any others, drop them in. But I've got a couple here. So, how do you help a team member to align the personal vision they have with a company vision? Does it start from the first time engaging with them in an interview?
It's a good question. And I guess it depends on what you do. It certainly does for me. And, in allied health, it is a little bit easier to be able to find that alignment. But I think you can find it everywhere. And I do think that we are at a stage where we do need to have meaning in our work. And the work without meaning is 100% the work that will be replaced by AI. And so, for some people, it's working with your hands and being outdoors. For some people, it's like, I love numbers and I love figuring stuff out. For some people, it's, like my family. So I do think, asking people, do you get higher meaning from, what's something in the world you'd like to be different is a really interesting question to be able to ask people. Certainly, why did you get into this? Why did you get into this? What drives you? What drove you to study this or learn this or apply for this job? That is always a question that I would encourage people um, to ask because, you want people to be excited about the work that they do and to find that meaning. So, what did you ask me? Yes, it's absolutely something that I would definitely ask in an interview. We actually have people shadow for at least half a day as well, because I can be a pretty good salesman, and so I actually don't want to convince them to come work for me, and then they hate it when they get there. I want them to come and see it and make sure that they're going to love doing it, and I want the team on board with hiring them as well because that social piece is a big deal. It's a much bigger deal. If there's friction in your team, I'd much rather have a new grad with zero experience that we have to strain from scratch, but she gets along with everyone than to have someone with all the experience. Actually, in my practice, a lot of the times the people with experience are the hardest to manage and the hardest to find the right fit. So if you're good training and supports and systems, you can train up someone with less experience who's more of an open book.
For sure. And like when I look at the VAs that we share with clients, it's interesting. I feel like I do the same thing. I talk it up and say, oh, look, from our experience, people from the Philippines, they join us and then they're like, wow, this is totally different. I'm like, but you probably want to talk to RJ about this because he's based in the Philippines as well. And he's going to tell you, what it's really like. And then they're like messaging him and they're like, it really is like what Jarryd was saying it was. But I just thought that he was just making it all up, and it's just interesting, how they have that misconception. It's probably just from previous experiences where they kind of feel that way. Um,
I just would add, like there's a huge shortage of therapists in Australia. The NDIS boomed and we don't have enough therapists, so it's really hard to find good quality people. In saying that though, what's much harder is replacing someone who's good. and someone
Mm.
you put a lot of effort in. So I almost try and talk people out of it if I like them because I don't want to lose them in 6 months' time.
Yeah, I agree
Mm.
with that.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you, Dave, because you spoke about certainty and uncertainty, and we had a good dose of that when we had 2021 when things were going on around the world. Um, we're seeing that again. So I've been having some really great conversations with people in the States and in Australia, and at the moment there's a bit of uncertainty that's starting to develop. It's something that it's a bit of a mix. Some people are saying that they're seeing it in the last 4 weeks. Some people are saying that they've seen it in the last couple of weeks. And so, as a leader, how do you show up to stay certain, and then how do you help empower your team members to also show up in those uncertain situations?
Yeah, it's a good question. It sort of makes me think of the sort of Brene Brown stuff of what's the concept? Uh, Vulnerability. Vulnerability is not spewing all your fears onto your team. So you do have to rock up with a level of confidence while also saying there's uncertainty here. Um,
Mm.
so supports for myself, I need to have supports that aren't my team for certain things. I need to have people that I tell and I have a good relationship with my wife, Kathy, who's also my business partner. So there's a built-in support there too.
Mm,
But whether you seek supervision or mentoring or coaching or a therapist, you got to have someone who's not your team that you can turn to. And then you got to be aware of what you're sharing with your team because you also can't be a robot. They know stuff's going on. You need to reflect their fears, but you also need to tell them that you acknowledge uncertainty and have some ideas of how you can get through it. Actually, ChatGPT is one of my best support these days. I often bounce a lot of ideas. I've got to figure this out. Here's what I like. I'll just ramble for 10 minutes and then
Mm.
it'll give feedback. And I usually have to say, don't blow smoke up my ass. I want honest, like I want to chat about this and how can we. But in my 18 years, there've been a lot of these things. Getting locked out of my own clinic was one of those. But and like losing everything. It's sort of 28,
Wow.
thinking we'd lose everything. Well, actually, it was we basically got all of our money that we invested minus the legal fees. But then you realize what's important to you. And so one of the things I often say to my team is like I wish you could have experienced failure a little bit more because I've had so many things along the way that have been hard
Yeah.
that these things just feel like a blip. It's just another thing, all right? When you've been around long enough, we were around before NDIS when people could get 5 sessions, $35 support from the government. And we ran a business at that stage. So I can run a business if they cut back on the NDIS. And they need to for it to be sustainable. So
mm.
it's a little bit about sort of going, I acknowledge that there is change. And I want to let you know that I've had experience with change and we'll get through it and we're working through it. Yeah, it's tricky. You need to acknowledge it. You need to be
Mm.
able to lose your shit with someone else so that you can keep your cool with the team while being honest as well. I don't know. Did I answer that?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
answered it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sam,
The
did you have a
sports, you need support. So this stuff is not just for team, it's for yourself. All of
That's
these
right.
aspects are for yourself.
Mm.
That's right, and it kind of led to another question that I had there, talking about self care, right? Because it's all well and good to say that you need self care, and even RJ uses a line with me: "Health is wealth," is one of his favorite lines that he throws out there. It's the same as I get to the end of the day and I can be like, yeah, look, I need to jump on my bike this afternoon. And then a few things that come up. It's like, yeah, well, I won't worry about jumping on the bike. I'll just get those things done, and then that turns into getting those things done, having a few beers and going, I probably should have rode my bike. Right. And I say that because I know that all of us are those, like have those moments where we go through it. And I know that there's more times as well where you're like, no, no, right now I feel like I need this self care to go out and catch up with a mate or go do something. Um, over your years of being in business, how do you find that you're helping yourself to stay accountable to self care, but also then making sure that your team members who love their job, because this is where I'm coming from with this question, love their job, but you've got to remind them that they also need self care and not to devote time inside and outside of work doing what they like.
Yeah, it's tricky, and I think it's not a simple thing. I think that people want to say, like honestly, I hate the words work-life balance. I feel like they've made life so much harder for people
Mm,
because people think it's about the number of hours you're doing what you do, and actually they've written off work. I think that's the biggest mistake people have made with that, is that work's become a dirty word. And actually,
Mm.
they say things like, I don't want to live to work, I want to work to live. And it's like, I want to love my work and love my not work and be wholly present with both of those when I'm there. So when one is invading the other for too long, that's a problem. But yeah, I mean, I struggle with some of the self-care things like eating well and exercising well. Honestly, I'm not someone who's an expert to give advice on self-care. One piece of advice that I think I would give is shame is worse than
Mm.
the non doing the self-care thing. So
Right.
like it just adds double to it if you don't do it and then you feel shameful. It's like you need to notice it and go, what's one thing I could do to improve that? And I like Atomic Habits is a good book just for getting some patterns. I do think that there are little things like just you can start to habit stack. Um, like I will run more often if I get my running gear out the night before. Like
mm.
Mm.
so then you go, I didn't do it. What's my routine to do it?
Mm.
Can I set an alarm? Like what's the next action to get me to do it again? To do it next time, but without shame. Because like shame doesn't help you do it. It just helps you feel worse. And then you eat a bag of chips and a bucket of ice cream.
It's really well said because it's the same as even when you're trying to share something with a team member or you're trying to have an argument with your partner or kids. You also got to be careful not to go down that same road of shaming them because otherwise they have that same response where they shut down as well. So communication is a big thing.
The other one is I love the analogy, I don't know who gives it, of putting in the big rocks first. I don't know if you've seen the thing with the vase. And if you put the sand in first and the pebbles and the rocks don't all fit in, but if you put the rocks in and the pebbles on top and the sand fits in, like just book your next 3 holidays, or at least book one in the next quarter. If you book it and you've paid for it, you're going to do it, right? And so that you'll get everything up to speed. And so, yeah, I would say book some stuff is one of the best self-care things that you can do because then you've locked it in, it's on your
I love that. You
schedule.
make it happen. You've already got it in there. What about online? If you've got a team online, now I ask this because I know a lot of people that join these calls are people that are online. Their team members are online. Some of them have offices with people internally, but then a lot of them have the team online around Australia, Pakistan, the Philippines, however that looks. How do you create a social environment when you're going online? And I know that there's been times over the years where we've had these challenges. What do you find has worked for you when you're trying to do that?
Yeah, so COVID was a good example of when we had to do that. Um, and it's hard. It's hard not to make it forced, and it's hard not to and again, like if you're deciding to do it outside of work time, then it's work. It's not, it's not a connection thing. So I think building it into your in work time to be able to connect. I think sometimes actually one thing I would say is consider for this person what things are phone calls versus face to face. Like we think Zoom and face to face is better than phone calls, but I have people in real life who, when we have a hard conversation, we walk side by side around the block because when they're sitting face to face with me, they freeze and they get uncomfortable. And we've just learnt to be side to side. And when they're moving and they're talking, and so the idea of having a walking meeting, even by phone over Zoom, for some people is better. For some people, it's much better to have the social cues and to be present with the video. But consider that you can't control everything, but you can chat. You can. I think connection is about building that like the biggest myth in business is the phrase "it's just business." All business is relationship. And so building those relationships, considering people have a life outside of work, just acknowledging that they have life outside of work, just acknowledging people for who they are, building that trust and connection. It's not about having work events and dinners and those sort of things. It's about connecting. And so being present, showing up on time for your meetings, Just because you're the boss doesn't mean you can turn up 15 minutes late. It just says you're not as valuable as me, and that doesn't build trust
Mm,
as well. So
Mm.
that I think there are little things that honor people's humanity,
love
being
that.
present and connected, and just thinking about what's the right means for that person. Probably in IT, um, therapy too, but I imagine IT is maybe a little bit over-indexed for autism. And so face-to-face eye contact is not always the best way to go. And just, I think, knowing that how the other person connects may not be how you do. Maybe even asking people how they like, what do you feel best for these kind of things? How would you like to do it? Here are some options.
Love it.
Mm. Yeah.
I've got a question here, which Brett's brought up in reference to when you spoke about profit first, Dave. How closely do you follow the system, and how much of an impact did it have on your business?
So I I don't, but I highly recommend it. By the time I found Profit First, we were sort of at a stage that it was hard, like it just felt harder to retroactively do it. But there are some basic things that we do where we do have, I don't know, I have so many bank accounts now, but where I funnel money for different things and I just getting money out of your transaction account when it's not your money because you've got a bill that you need to pay if you can
Mm,
get it. When you got team, the most obvious one that everyone can do instantly and that we have to do to some degree in Australia now is so soon we're going to start payday super. But until now, it was once a quarter you would pay super, and it would be these massive bills for businesses. So we just had a habit of we move super into another account every fortnight. So now payday super's coming. It's no big deal for me. I do the same with tax, PAYG. I move it into that. And I would say even for solopreneurs, do that for yourself as well. As you pay yourself, put away some tax and figure that out. That's a really great practice because you have highs and lows over the month. And if you see $20,000 in there, you might buy that new furniture and then you get $17,000 worth of bills in 3 days. So, yeah, get the money out as quickly as possible. I think that's a good practice. What I do, so I read Profit First and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And I sort of put a few things in. Clockwork is a book I live by, which is Mike McCallow's as well. I love it. And we actually did the Run Like Clockwork program that isn't around anymore. They do Clockwork Coaches, but it was a whole program, put our whole team through it, but really getting right clear on vision and values. That's where we came up with our organizing principle. He calls it a queen bee role, but that's we support the people who support the kids. Um, which is a fun exercise. Actually, I can tell you how they do that.
mm,
Probably copyright, but they say get 6 post-it notes, write the 6 non-negotiables of your business on those post-it notes. And then say, if someone had a gun to your head and you had to take away two, what would they be? Take away those two. You got four left. Same thing happens again. You take away two, you got two left. Same thing happens again. You're left with one. That's the one non-negotiable in your business. That's your queen bee role. We call it our organizing principle. I cheated. I started with 8 instead of 6, and I couldn't stop with the last two. And the last two were we support families to support their kids, and we support our team members to support those families. So I cheated and said we support the people who support the kids, and
Mm.
both of those, and now we've added community to it.
That's cool. I was going
Um,
to do that program. I know that one. Yeah, I've got the book as well.
Love
Hmm.
Clockwork. Clockwork was one
Yeah.
when I did Profit First and I saw it and I put it on my Audible and I forgot about it. And then one day I was sort of doing some yard work. I'm like, oh, I need a new audio book. I wonder if I've got any. And it was there and I listened to it in one day. Like
Um,
worked over in 24 hours, over 2 days.
hmm.
And I was just obsessed with it. I love it.
Okay,
Great for
cool.
delegating. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Okay. I'll look at it again.
Sam, did you have any questions?
I was just going to comment about the team because I have like a small little team, and I find that because they're all working by themselves in their kitchen or in their little rooms, that they actually really enjoy having the team meeting because it's like their
Yeah.
kind of time to have a chat. And we sometimes do a thing called coffee shop, where it's
Yeah.
just like we just work together, and just have a chat, and everyone just works, you know, for a couple of hours every day just so it just creates
Mhm.
some sort of stickiness and momentum that works really well.
Yeah, I think
So,
that's great.
yeah, it just depends
I,
on your team and where they are and what the kind of team you have.
Yeah, I think, and I think asking the team, I guess that's another thing is,
Mm,
particularly when you have small teams, they sort of feel a little bit like families sometimes, and just say, look, you guys all love, you guys are all in it and you're passionate about it, and I have a lot of respect for you guys. I know that this is great for our work, for our work-life balance to be working from home and doing these things, and we like that, but also, like feeling connected to the team you work with is important. What ideas do you guys have that would feel good to you guys, not an added pressure, not an extra
Mm.
workload, not something that prevents you from getting your work done and then you don't have enough time, but like it's important for me to connect with you, but in a way that feels good to you. I think asking the team
Mm.
is a really good option. And it sounded like, were you doing co-working sessions, did you say, Sam?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we just all get on at, a time that suits everyone and just
Yep.
chat. And we'd actually did a thing where we did like a different cafe around the world. And then, everyone chose, like, so we went to Paris and went to like one in the Philippines and one in Thailand. And it was okay, well, everyone has this background. And we're like, where are we to this week? So that was kind of fun. And yeah, just change it up a bit. So
Love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I love Pomodoros. So Pomodoro, the concept is like he had a tomato timer and he would set it for 25 minutes and have a 5 minute break and then set it for another 25 and have a 15. But we do an hour Pomodoro in our clinic. We call it tomato time. And so people get on Google Chat and say, anyone have time this afternoon for some tomato time? And we'll jump on. You spend 5 minutes saying hi. You say what you're going to work on. You put it in the chat.
Yeah.
You turn off your screen. You turn off your audio. You work for 45 to 50 minutes. Then you come back and say if you did it. I'm 3 times more efficient. I hold those appointments. If I time block to get my own work done, I don't keep that commitment to myself. But if I time
Yeah.
block for a tomato time Pomodoro session,
Yeah.
I turn up, I do it, and I'm 3 times more efficient.
Mm.
And it's nice
Mm.
to connect, even for just 5 minutes.
Yep.
It makes a difference. Yeah, it's cool.
Mm.
I've got one question here for you, Dave, and then we've gone through them all. You made a comment about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, right? And something that I've seen is people being hesitant to hire someone that acts like an entrepreneur within their business because they've either had a negative uh, negative outcome with that, where they've kind of jumped in, learnt the tricks of the trade, and then gone out and done their own thing. Um, and so I guess when we're looking at this, right, I'm very big on empowering the team. The more that I can share with them to be able to do more and be more, the better. But then that same amount of effort and those skills could walk out the door. Like you said, having someone good, you wouldn't want to let them go. So what my question was around that
Mm.
is, how do you provide them with a structure then where they can have that look without the need of feeling like, oh my gosh, I've just got to go out and start doing my own thing now, right? How do you help them to get that same fulfillment? Is that something that you pick up on and go, that's something that I should keep an eye on to make sure that they're getting, that addiction at work rather than feeling that they need to chase it somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? I think one thing you need to do is you need to if so, and this is easier said than done, but I try and
Mm.
hold true to my vision. So my vision is that one day all kids, regardless of their differences, will have meaningful lives and be valued by their communities. So if someone learns from me and leaves and
Mm.
sets up their own thing and it helps that, they're helping my vision. All right. And that's nice to say, even when it's not helpful, if it's impacting your business and you run out of business. Like I get
Mm.
the fear of it. I don't think it's about having someone replace you necessarily or something. Like you can sometimes feel those people. I ask people about, what their desire statement, where do they want to go, where they want to be in 3 to 5. Like you can suss some of those people out. There's a difference between that and an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur doesn't want to do everything that I do. Actually, in our business, we talk about co-creating career paths. And so
Mm.
we find their passions and they tend to grow the business in an area that's meaningful to them. And, some people want to run
Nice.
businesses, but
Brilliant.
most people don't. Most people don't even want to manage people. And so one thing I've done well is I've helped people grow outside of line management, which most other people in my industry haven't done. So we've got, someone who's in charge of social media, someone who's looking into AI, who's in charge of AI, someone who runs our group programs, someone who runs internal professional development, someone who runs external professional development, someone who just makes sure we have healthy snacks, just little leadership opportunities where people can feel like they can step up, add some value that other people don't. And I've got someone who's just taken on a cultural diversity role. So she not in like this sort of DEI kind of way, but in a, like let's learn about other cultures and so that the kids that come in can see their culture during a week that makes sense for it, it's cool. And these are things that are meaningful to those guys because I've asked. We've created something. It's cost me nothing. Sometimes it's cost me time, or I've got a few of those roles at 20% time where they get a day to do it.
Mm.
But it's not the whole business in general, apart from the managers. And then it's about relationship. It's about relationship and conversations and knowing the person so that you can see when those things are coming and having those hard conversations and asking for opportunities to keep them. So that's my thoughts.
Brilliant, mate. Did anyone else want to ask any questions? I know there's a couple still left on here. We've gone well over, but that's okay.
It's all right. It was fun. I do have to go though, but
Awesome.
thanks for inviting me. And yeah, anyone who's watching this that wants to reach out, you've got my details earlier on in the presentation. Anyone here too, do connect on LinkedIn. I do think there's a different brand of people that are connected to communities like this, so it's fun to be connected. And yeah, thanks for having me.